Hey, what's going on? Today I'm going to do a deep dive into the history of fighting games. Fighting games have been around for over 40 years, so naturally there are several hundred fighting games. For that reason, I'll only be discussing what I've deemed to be the most influential titles. This is, of course, just my opinion. Enjoy the video. It all started with Heavyweight Champion in 1976. The black and white boxing game made by Sega puts you against one opponent. The arcade cabinet had a boxing glove for each player. If you wanted to punch high, you would move the boxing glove up and down for low. To strike the opponent, you would simply move the boxing glove in, as if you're striking them. Though the game had very simple gameplay, it was the first game where two characters fought with their hands. Although there really isn't much to talk about, it really set the foundation for what was to come. Only a few years later in 1980 we received the Activision game for the Atari 2600 Boxing. This top-down game has you throwing long and short punches to receive 1 and 2 points respectively. The game ended when a player reached 100 points or the timer ran out. Just like this game, essentially all fighting games at the time were based upon boxing. It wouldn't actually be until our next title that developers really started exploring different fighting styles. Released in 1984 and developed by Technos Japan, Karate Champ, specifically the player vs. player version, is a particularly important game. Though this was not the first game to explore a fighting style other than boxing, it became one of the most popular. Everything from the unique gameplay that featured high and low kicks to the incredible art style at the time, it is very clear as to why it was so popular. One of the most important things to notice, however, is the use of the best of 3 format. This would end up being adopted by the vast majority of fighting games today. Only a few popular games have strayed from this format. Next, we'll take a look at one of the most widely known fighting games of all time. This game truly needs no introduction, but for those of you living under a rock, this is Capcom's 1987 Street Fighter. Arguably the most iconic fighting game series of all time. The original Street Fighter was the first game to use special moves. Despite this, the first entry in the series was actually not very popular. Even though the game had some very nice art for the time, the relatively bland characters and stages made the game a tough sell. People wanted bigger and better. But instead of giving up on the series, Capcom instead doubled down and tried again. Enter Street Fighter 2. Remember when I said that the importance of these games are ranked by my opinion? Well, this is the one exception. Street Fighter 2 refined its use of special moves, created new and interesting characters, and made more visually appealing stages. However, those improvements pale in comparison to the accidental discovery that changed fighting game history. To explain what I'm talking about, I need to explain a certain bonus stage in this game. You see, Street Fighter 2 had multiple bonus stages, including a stage where you beat up a car. When one of the developers was testing this stage, it is said that he accidentally did 2 moves so quickly that it looked like they were connected. This today is obvious to us that it was a combo, but back then, this was an unintentional bug in the game. Fearing that this might be too strong, developers tested the removal of this bug by making it impossible to land a follow-up attack. The game became very dull, which led to the decision of them keeping combos. Arguably a very good decision. Combos were quickly discovered and began to shape how players approached fighting games. Although Street Fighter 3 Third Strike isn't really the most important Street Fighter game, it is easily my favorite. The introduction of the parrying mechanic added so many interesting layers to an already complex game. Instead of blocking, you can tap forward at a specific time to parry an attack. This would get rid of all chip damage and make it so you do not receive any block stun or hit stun, allowing you to counter attack. Though today it is pretty hit or miss whether people like it or not, I feel like it was a fantastic addition to the game. Of course, I can't talk about Third Strike without talking about Evo Moment 37. Let's take a look. Evo Moment 37 went on to be one of the most famous fighting game clips of all time. A young Daigo Umehara, the one who parried the super, and Justin Wong, the one who used the super move, had absolutely no clue what was going to happen that day. This clip would go on to inspire many young players, and performing a parry like that became known as the Daigo parry. Oh, Guilty Gear. Where do I even begin? This is the quintessential anime fighting game. The term anime fighter not only describes the art style, but also the gameplay. In addition to really fast-paced rounds, anime fighters typically have much more air-based movement, such as a double jump and an air dash. Daisuke Ishiwatari is the visionary responsible for the title that so many hold near and dear to their hearts, Guilty Gear. Daisuke also began working for Arc System Works at a very young age. Not only did he design the game, but he is also an illustrator, composer, and voice actor. That is right, the music in Guilty Gear is all made by Daisuke. He even voice acted Soul Bad Guy in the earlier versions of the game. The original Guilty Gear was quite a spectacle. It had great music, story, and really cool gameplay. But by today's standards, the game is completely broken. The next installment in the series, Guilty Gear X, really made the series blow up in popularity. Guilty Gear X was only slightly more refined than its predecessor though. The game still had several infinite combos that really broke it. Despite this, it was still loved by the community. In 2002, we received Guilty Gear XX. It is the first version of the game you are now seeing on screen. Just like Guilty Gear X, XX would receive many major updates to change the balance of the game, resulting in the current version today. Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R. Kind of a mouthful, right? What exactly made the gameplay of Guilty Gear so interesting? Two big things stand out to me when this question is asked. The tension gauge and Roman cancels. The tension gauge is a form of super meter that allows you to perform force break moves, also known as EX moves, super moves, and Roman cancels. What made it so unique, however, is that the game would punish you for playing too defensively. Turtling and running away would result in you losing tension. The reverse is true of this as well. Running at your opponent and hitting them with moves builds tension. But what about Roman cancels? By pressing any 3 attack buttons simultaneously, you could completely cancel the recovery of whatever move you're performing at the cost of 50% tension. This allowed you to create new and higher damaging combos, as well as letting you make unsafe moves completely safe. Guilty Gear has 2 other main games that are still played to this day. Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator 2 and Guilty Gear Strive, which came out this year in 2021. Melty Blood is another really fascinating game. Developed by Type Moon and French Bread and released in 2002, Melty Blood is a fighting game based off the visual novel Tsukihime. Similar to Guilty Gear, Melty Blood would have several versions that would add new characters, story, and game modes. The final version being Melty Blood Actress Again Current Code. Another mouthful. Though Melty Blood is unique in many ways, the key difference I would like to discuss is the moon system. Each character in the game can pick between 3 different moons when picking your character. Crescent Moon, Half Moon, and Full Moon. Each moon gives your character access to different movesets and system mechanics. Though some say it makes the game too complicated, I think it actually adds a lot of depth and helps it really stand out from its competition. But there's one story I'd really like to discuss. Melty Blood unfortunately was never a main stage game at tournaments. It was often referred to as a poverty game since you would often find many people playing it on the floor at tournaments and different conventions. Due to this, these people were usually told to just leave, go anywhere but where they were at the time, as they were clogging up hallways and whatnot. One year it got so bad that they held a tournament in the bathroom. Yeah, let that sink in. Anyway, the reason I'm telling this story is because I believe that the game has had a resurgence in popularity. And not only has it had a resurgence in popularity, but I believe it's more popular than it's ever been right now. This is probably due to a new entry in the series that has been announced to release in late September 2021. Overall, I'm very happy that more people are playing it, and I hope that it continues to get more popularity in the future. Finally, let's talk about team fighters. Team fighting games have you pick more than one fighter to be on your team. This genre has several popular games such as Marvel vs. Capcom, The King of Fighters, Tekken Tag Tournament, BlazBlue Cross Tag, and many more. But the game I'll be talking about is Dragon Ball FighterZ. There are many great team fighter games, but I believe DBFZ accomplished something that many games are trying to do now. It's completely new player friendly. Besides relatively simple combos, those who are brand new to fighting games could use auto combos. Using an auto combo is as simple as pressing one button over and over again, as you can see on screen. Though it generally had much lower return, it made a previously notoriously hard to learn genre of games much more approachable for new players. DBFZ also did an excellent job at making people feel powerful. Though some of it has to do with the IP and just the characters in general, I believe that the actual system mechanics contributes to this really well. Fighting games really do have an interesting history. I think today, for a fighting game to be successful, in addition to fun gameplay, it needs to be more approachable for new players and have good netcode. As the pandemic quickly proved to us, a fighting game with poor online play will die. Though I wasn't able to cover every game today, I feel that these are some of the most important fighting games. 2021 has also been a really exciting year for fighting games. With Guilty Gear Strive being one of the most popular fighting games on release ever, and Melty Blood Type Lumina and King of Fighters 15 on the horizon, the fighting game community really has a lot to look forward to. Now stop watching this video and go practice your combos. But seriously, thank you for watching.